program. The Buhari's administration formally clocks 2 years next Monday, the 29th. All-week assessment of the various parts of economy, business, investment, and markets here on Channels Television. Follow the conversation on Twitter at Channels TV or at Beast Morning, or you can tweet directly at me at B Bolson. Yesterday was the okay. That's what our Twitter handles for the organization and for the show itself. So let's talk about the Buhari's midterm report. Let's bring in the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Yesterday was the 2017 edition of the LCCI Presidential Policy Dialogue, that series, just very appropriately timed in a very busy business week. Mr. Abuna Yusuf, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. You were very busy yesterday for you, so we apologize for dragging you out of bed to get into the studio this morning to talk about this. But very quickly, 1 minute. What's your assessment of the administration in 2 years, midterm, as it were?
Well, it has been quite challenging for both business and for government, because we had some very important variables that impacted the economy, which were not exactly within the control of government. You know, the odds were enormous. And moving the economy forward was like swimming against the tide. You know, first, as you know, we had the challenge with the oil price, which came as low as $30 in February 2016. And with this economy, what can you do with that oil? Even with all the talk about diversification, the economy is still highly sensitive to developments in the oil sector. So that was a major factor, which posed the challenge of just keeping the economy afloat. That was the challenge that we faced, at least in the last 1.5 years, because of some of these fundamental challenges that we have. So to the extent that we had this major fundamental problem, and to the extent that the administration also inherited an economy with a with a defective structure, because the economy itself is not properly structured, and it will take some time for you to actually structure the economy properly. So the shock that came from the oil sector was a major problem, both for government and for the private sector, because it affected the key macroeconomic variables. It affected the exchange rate, it affected reserves, it affected interest rate, it affected so many things. And all these things also affected businesses. So the challenges have been enormous. But again, perhaps the challenges wouldn't have been as much as it was if the policy responses were also slightly different. The quality of policy responses also contributed a bit to the challenges that we faced in business. And again, the way the economy was managed, the uncertainty that we started out with in the administration, because, for instance, it took some time for us to have a cabinet. It took some time for us to have a clear direction of policy. So all these things affected confidence of investors, created uncertainty and all of that. Then policy responses within the monetary policy space, particularly the FX policy, also added to the problem. So we had challenges arising first from factors which I would call exogenous factors, and factors that are also policy related.
We're midstream, as it were, so we have 2 more years down the line. What's been happening within this quarter, as it were? Maybe from January, we have the ERGP, now we have 3 new executive orders, the budget's been passed. Are you encouraged by some fiscal policies and policy directions right now?
Of course, things are looking better. First, on the oil and gas side, the oil prices are looking good. This is an external factor. But on the policy front, a lot is happening. The foreign exchange policy, we have made a lot of progress with that. You know, over the last 1 year, there has been a lot of debate about whether we should allow it to be market-driven, but we have seen some progress, especially with respect to the exporters and investors window. We are now seeing a bigger scope for the market to play a role, which is what we have been advocating for. Then, of course, we have had the ERGB, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which has laid out clearly the direction in which the government is trying to go as far as policy is concerned. And this cuts across virtually all aspects of policy, both monetary policy, trade policy, fiscal policy, tax policy. So that has also given more confidence. And we have seen very strong political will to drive the process. We have seen greater level of engagement between the private sector and the government. So the communication is better. The quality of policy is also taking a much better shape. Do
you think the ease of doing business, or the 3 executive orders, is a manifestation or one example or testimony of the government, the Buhari's administration, listening to organized private sector agencies and groups like yours? Exactly. What is in that 3 executive orders for you?
No, of course, I mean, we are talking of the budgetary process. We are talking about the issue at the ports. We are talking about issues of procurement. We are talking about issues that has to do with patronage of made in Nigerian goods. We are talking about transparency of the transactions of the MDAs, the government agencies. All these things will impact a lot, because you can't run an economy without a good interface between the public sector and the private sector. You have issues of regulation that are driven by public sector. We have issues of institutions that are driven by public sector. Unless we get it right at that front, we may not also find it easy on the private sector front. So it's going to impact positively, and of course we are beginning to see.
You had your presidential policy dialogue series yesterday. Yes. It's another opportunity to have another direct interface with top government officials and the heavyweights in the Nigeria's business community were there. So what new things did you hear from the government yesterday, and what new ideas or new thinking did you, the LCCI, put forward to put icing on the cake of what you said has been positive trend, as it were?
Well, you see, the problems of the economy are not new. The issues are not new. What is new is the momentum and the tempo of engagement. And that is what even the presidential policy dialogue is all about. It will scale up the engagement. The issues that we have always talked about issues of business environment, issues of policy, issues, institutional issues and all of that. These are issues that have been with us for several years. What we have not been able to get the government to do is to listen more to the private sector and to do what the private sector expects the government to do. And that is the progress we are making now. So the presidential policy dialogue is also to improve on the engagement process. And I'm happy that the acting president was ably represented by the Minister of Trade and Investment. And he's taking back quite a lot of the outcomes. And we are going to prepare a communique arising from that engagement, which we transmit to the office of the president, the vice president, the relevant ministers, and the relevant MDAs. So it's a continuation, it's sustaining the momentum of engagement. That is the entire idea.